The Bleacher Report app is your destination for sports. Right now, the NBA is heating up, March Madness is here, and MLB is almost back. Every day there's a new headline, a new highlight, a new moment you've got to see for yourself. That's why I stay locked in with the Bleacher Report app. For me, it's about staying connected to my sports. I can follow the teams I care about, get real-time scores, breaking news, and highlights all in one place. Download the Bleacher Report app today so you never miss a moment.
Hi, this is Alex Kantrowitz. I'm the host of Big Technology Podcast, a longtime reporter and an on-air contributor to CNBC. And if you're like me, you're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is changing the business world and our lives. So each week on Big Technology, I bring on key actors from companies building AI tech and outsiders trying to influence it, asking where this is all going. They come from places like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, and plenty more. So if you want to be smart with your wallet, your career choices, in meetings with your colleagues, and at dinner parties, listen to Big Technology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. So I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Well, let's get right to it. There is a war in the Middle East. It is not abating. And despite Donald Trump's claim that Iran is talking to the United States, we know that there seems to be no evidence of that. There may be some notes being passed back and forth. We are told that some nations are insisting that something be done to curb what's happening. But we also know that the violence continues. Rockets are still being fired. Drones are still flying from Iran, hitting Israel. And we know that our ally, Israel, is under attack. What is Donald Trump suggesting when he says that things are going to be resolved, that talks are taking place? Does he believe for even an instant that as long as Iran has the capability, they will stop attacking our ally Israel? And what does it mean if, in fact, the president says things are getting better, when the U.S. Department of State issues a worldwide caution, security alert, instructing Americans who are abroad to, and I quote directly, exercise increased caution, especially in the Middle East, amid the ongoing war in Iran. We are told that Americans traveling should follow guidance from the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate and be aware that periodic airspace closures may cause travel disruptions. That according to the State Department. This is amazing. Donald Trump, don't you get it? You started a war. The war is active. The war involves our ally Israel. And you continue to feel that things are getting better? Give me a break. But that's not all, my friends. We need to understand what is happening with our allies, our European allies, who cannot figure out what the heck Donald Trump is doing. Does Donald Trump know what he's doing? Yesterday, I questioned Donald Trump's competence to be president. I do so again. And there is a nomination being considered by the Senate, Casey Means, for Surgeon General of the United States. The Republican Party is now deciding in the Senate what to do about the Means nomination. And it appears Casey Means does not have the votes to be confirmed. Why? Because Casey Means she is anti-vaccine. Got it? The thing the administration claimed would not impact. No, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s views on vaccines would not have an impact, in fact, is having an impact. It is, to me, absolutely a disgrace. And while we can focus on foreign policy, while we can focus on what Congress is or is not doing in relation to the Save America Act, so-called, what really is at stake here is the future of America's health. Do you want a Surgeon General of the United States who is opposed to the idea of vaccines? Did you listen to her testimony? It is absolutely astounding that she has not already had her nomination withdrawn. In short, there are a lot of disruptions taking place around the world, and it can be noted that those disruptions are primarily due to Donald Trump. But the big story, I think, has to do with the fact that CBS News is cutting jobs. It's ending its 100-year-old radio service. And the story is clear. CBS News began a new round of layoffs on Friday, which we discussed. CBS Radio News, which I find a staple in my life, will end on May 22nd. And that affects all of us. The network said it would be eliminating about 6% of the workforce, roughly 60 employees, and would end CBS Radio News. In a memo to employees, CBS News president and editorial chief both said that the staff would be notified shortly about what those changes will mean. The company said CBS News has operated for nearly a century. It pointed out the role of carrying Edward R. Murrow's World War II reports and the long-running World News Roundup, which I adore. The World News Roundup has been my staple. It's vanishing. These cuts are the second round of layoffs at CBS News. And may I tell you, I'm horrified. Look, let's be blunt. How do I accumulate the information that I have, which I can communicate to you? It is by reading various news sources. And there is no doubt in my mind that CBS, NBC, ABC are all under siege. And now we have a real paradox. Where do we get our information? Now, there are many issues taking place in the world today which we aren't covering. The war in Ukraine is not being covered the way it ought to be. And the reason? Because we don't have the news agencies that can really dig into these issues. And it's true that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, NPR, and yes, all of the advantages that we have had since the McNeil-Lehrer report decades ago are now being stripped away. They're being stripped away because the Trump administration is waging an unrelenting war against media. Now, you know they suffered a great defeat when the Department of Defense, that's what it is, not the Department of War, no matter how many times Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth say it, it is the Department of Defense, stripped news agencies of the ability to cover what's going on unless they signed a pledge to only carry the official stuff. Well, that was rejected by a federal judge. And so now the administration has had to retreat. Now you can be given press credentials, but there is no doubt that this is going to create a huge problem in terms of coverage. It does not mean that the crisis is over. And this, to me, is the most critical aspect of all. Where we get our news, what reporters can and cannot do. I just finished teaching a course on Edward R. Murrow for the Fromm Institute at the University of San Francisco. I must tell you, I enjoyed that class immensely because it was so current. What I mean by current is Murrow may have passed away in 1965, but the battle which Murrow waged for operating news in a fair, clear fashion remains alive. These are serious times, and in order to evaluate what's going on, we have to have access to information. I want to point something else out. And it's dreadful. For many years, the Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, and others would ask me for commentary on what was going on in Eastern Europe, particularly in the days of the struggle to free Soviet Jews. And I participated willingly, gladly, because I understood what these news sources mean to the world. Do you know that today, those agencies which provided news to the world have been closed, stripped of their ability to function? And the person responsible is Donald Trump. Now, there's a lot of talk about what to do about Cuba and whether or not Donald Trump will have his way and be able to seize Cuba. Well, did you know that once upon a time we had radio broadcasting to Cuba to try to alert the population about what was going on, to give them free, fair, frank news analysis? It's gone. We don't have that ability anymore because Donald Trump closed that aspect of our news broadcasts. And let me describe for you for a moment what is happening at NPR, at the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, where again, there is a complete attempt by the Trump administration to destroy these agencies. When I would travel the country giving speeches, I always knew that if I went to NPR, the local NPR station, I would get the latest news. That's not the case anymore because these stations are struggling or, in fact, have closed their doors. When you have these seismic changes in news, well, we got a problem. And by the way, when the United States State Department advises worldwide caution to travelers, how do you know about it? Well, in the old days, you'd hear it on the news. You'd hear it reported. This is a national tragedy. One of my colleagues suggested that what should happen is that another network, say ABC, should buy the CBS radio news network and provide news across the board to the numerous stations which subscribe to that method. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. Why? Because people are afraid. There is a fear abroad in the land, a fear about what the Trump administration will do, whether it has to do with news, whether it has to do with vaccines, whether it has to do with the environment. Do you understand? Donald Trump has gutted the Environmental Protection Agency. Donald Trump is gutting NOAA. In the midst of a clear crisis in terms of what we are doing now about weather, where you have massive swings in weather, what is the Trump administration doing? They still deny global warming. Okay, let's pause for a moment and say that man is not responsible for global warming. Many of our listeners believe that this is simply a cycle, and we are now in a cycle where, well, the weather changes and we just have to adjust to it. Let me be clear. They may be right, but why don't we take cautionary action? Why don't we tighten up our controls? Why is the Trump administration loosening what we can do in terms of automobiles and the fact that more and more emissions are having a huge impact on our environment? I can only say that yesterday I offered the conclusion that Trump and his administration are a disaster for America. I believe that to be absolutely true. So let's pause and think what we can do in response. One is to register to vote in the November election. It is, to me, essential to suggest that the Democrats need to capture the House and the Senate. No question about it, because that would put the brakes on what Donald Trump can and cannot do. It wouldn't stop him, because a president does have huge executive authority, but it would put the brakes on. And now, again, our attention turns to the Supreme Court of the United States, which is debating the question of mail-in ballots. And there will be a decision, probably by June, because the Supreme Court is being called on by the Trump administration to restrict the use of mail-in ballots. If that happens, then the course of American elections and American history will change profoundly. These are serious questions that I am raising this morning. And today is Wednesday. It's Tuesday. It is Tuesday today. And that means that you all have until Friday to come up with questions. Please do submit your questions to me, and you know how to do it. Go-Go Zoger is assembling those questions. You can do it by going to the links to the show notes to connect with yours truly on social media. And that is exactly what we want you to do. The idea of interactive discussion is more critical today than ever before. We'll see where the world is tomorrow. There's no question that we're watching the Middle East, we're watching Ukraine, we're watching what's happening in Congress, we're watching what the administration is doing, because, my friends, it is essential to our national security. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. You can write a review on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify, click any of the links to the show notes to connect with me on social media, and so you can submit your questions. Remember to share this episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which of course is our goal. Remember, this show has been getting so much positive attention that we now have advertising support. This will help us create more opportunities for Around the Political World with John Rothman. I want to say a special thank you to Go-Go Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast, who is always doing her best to make sure that we are up and running, and I guess keeping me on the straight and narrow. I am John Rothman. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope the news is better, right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.
The Bleacher Report app is your destination for sports. Right now, the NBA's heating up, March Madness is here, and MLB is almost back. Every day there's a new headline, a new highlight, a new moment you've got to see for yourself. That's why I stay locked in with the Bleacher Report app. For me, it's about staying connected to my sports. I can follow the teams I care about, get real-time scores, breaking news, and highlights all in one place. Download the Bleacher Report app today so you never miss a moment.
Hey, I'm Josh Spiegel, host of the podcast Lunatic in the Newsroom. If you enjoy journalism that drifts into mild panic, wild overthinking, and a guaranteed nervous breakdown, Lunatic in the Newsroom is for you. It's news like you've never heard before. The only newsroom with a panic button. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and gasp in horror as the show spirals completely out of control. It's not just news, it's emotionally unstable. Lunatic in the Newsroom. Listen today.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.